Matt Reeves' new film, The Batman, came out this weekend, and overall the response seems to be consistently positive. It scored favorably on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, IMDb, and if you saw the reactions on Twitter, pretty much everyone who's seen it has loved it. Even amongst my own friends, there seems to be a general consensus that it's one of the best Batman movies ever put to film. And I have to say, it's pretty good. There's a lot I loved about it, and a good bit that I really didn't like about it. But it's a 3-hour movie, and it would probably take me an hour to get into every positive and negative opinion I have on it. So, instead I'm just going to talk about one thing that really bothered me, one plot hole or contrivance, or I guess just a lapse in judgment or logic, that, in my opinion, makes about 90% of this movie irrelevant. I'll also talk about how if this were an alternate universe where I got the chance to read the script ahead of time, how I would have suggested to fix this problem. So, if you haven't seen The Batman yet, please stop the video and come back when you're done, because there are massive spoilers ahead. So, assuming you've seen the movie, you know that the main villain of it is the Riddler, and his plan is to eliminate members of Gotham's elite, culminating in his followers assassinating Mayor-elect Bella Real. By the time Real's assassination attempt comes to fruition, the Riddler has already been caught as part of his plans, after killing Carmine Falcone outside of the Iceberg Lounge and essentially giving himself up at the coffee shop around the corner. How he does that, well, I'm not really sure. He just sort of lucks into it by Selina's friend leaving her a voicemail and giving Batman and the cops probable cause to arrest him, but whatever. That's not my issue. My issue is that the Riddler snipes Falcone from his own apartment, which overlooks the Iceberg Lounge. This leads Batman and Gotham PD to rush up to the apartment, where Gordon realized that the Riddler's been here the entire time. Throughout the entire movie, throughout the entire case, the Riddler has been watching outside of the Iceberg Lounge. The problem with that is, Batman and Gordon should have known that he'd been there the entire time, or at least suspected it. But how would they have known that? Well, a little simple sleuthing that any cop or amateur detective would have done probably would have done the trick. So let's go back earlier in the movie. As Batman figures out the clues that Riddler has left at the first crime scene where he murdered Mayor Don Mitchell Jr., Batman and Gordon come across a thumb drive. On the thumb drive, there are pictures of Mayor Mitchell with an unknown woman outside of the Iceberg Lounge, taken from a vantage point overlooking the outside of the club. Now, by the end of the movie, we and everyone else realizes that the photos were taken from Riddler's apartment. But in the moment, neither Batman nor Gordon think to investigate the perspective of where the photos were shot. I mean, Riddler even sends those photos to the entire Gotham media, who plaster the photos everywhere for everyone in the city to see. And not one cop, not one investigative journalist, not one good Samaritan thinks about where those pictures were taken from. That's almost the first thing any police department would investigate, and something that Batman definitely should have thought about. Okay, but let's just say they didn't think of that. At this point in the movie, there are almost no leads on who the Riddler is. So, if you know that he's been watching the Iceberg Lounge in any capacity, do you think there would be some attempt of investigation or surveillance of the area, right? There are almost no leads, and Batman's first thought is to go investigate the Penguin because he just so happens to be in the photo that Riddler took, but he doesn't think to investigate where the photo was taken from? Even if that leads you to a random rooftop, it at least gives you a better clue on where the Riddler has been or done than anything the Penguin can give up. And that's a really disappointing aspect of a movie that really wants you to feel like Batman puts in the legwork as a detective. Instead of using their brains and deductive capabilities, Gordon and Batman instead willingly play the Riddler's game so a movie can happen. But I guess Gordon and Batman aren't great detectives at all, since really throughout the movie they barely solve anything anyway. Okay, so that's my problem with the movie. But I also think there's a pretty significantly easy way to fix this. First off, I think Batman should find the vantage point after putting in a little legwork. We could see him skulking around, checking apartments and matching them up with the photos, and maybe even illegally entering in apartments and investigating them, since he doesn't need a warrant to investigate. So let's say he discovers the apartment where the photos were taken, and after investigating the apartment, he finds enough evidence to think this is the person who is the Riddler. He's arrested, and the Riddler case is solved. or so everyone thinks. At this point in the movie, District Attorney Coulson is still missing, and the real Riddler could still put a bomb to his neck at the mayor's funeral, revealing that Batman and Gordon got this completely wrong. And it'd be a nice little twist in a movie that kind of deserves a better one than Selina's dad is Falcone. This would cause Batman and Gordon to have egg on their face, as their deductions would have led them to not find the Riddler, but to find one of his followers. You see, in this version of the story, the Riddler is not one man this entire time. He would have accomplices, which would be a better setup and foreshadow for the end of the movie when his followers attempt to assassinate the mayor-elect. In this version, the Riddler is the mastermind, but we realize that he was never working alone, which would make him even more of an existential threat to Batman. Because now, Batman hasn't just inspired one person to be a symbol of vengeance, he's directly influenced many. This would make his change at the end from being a symbol of vengeance to one of hope all the more significant. Also, it allows the Riddler to murder Falcone in front of everyone and up close. He wants to get caught anyway, so why does it matter if he walks up and shoots him or snipes him? It doesn't. In fact, if he does it in front of everyone, it's more in line with his narcissistic motivations. Besides, Batman and the GCPD would still investigate the Riddler's home because police always raid the homes of serial killers even after they've been caught, so Batman could still figure out his clues about the bombings. So that's how I'd fix my biggest gripe about the Batman. Overall, I still enjoyed this film, even though I didn't seem to love it as much as everyone else I know. The visuals and the cinematography and the action, and Robert Pattinson is a fantastic Batman, but it's a major issue I have with it. I really hope that for the next movies, they get the plot sorted out a little bit better, because I kind of found it all a mess. But that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people love this movie. So if you like this video, feel free to like and subscribe for some more content, as well as check out my podcast I do with a couple of my friends who will review things from our childhood. It's called Millennial Milkshake. It's a whole lot of fun, and new episodes come out every single Tuesday. All right, I gotta go. Bye.